Do you remember those cozy morning meals once served at fast food spots? From secret menu items at McDonald's to French toasts at Burger King, let's dish out some of the best fast food breakfasts that are no longer available. McDonald's is a name anyone can recognize and still holds up today just as much as before, but do you remember when they were serving the iconic Big Breakfast at stores? McDonald's best and most iconic starter was probably their Big Breakfast, which literally everybody can remember having. This dish was truly a star on the 70s and 80s menus way before anybody ever even thought of a McMuffin. Mostly popular amongst teenagers working part-time, and McDonald's staff would enjoy a big breakfast on early work days. It was not just them, trust us. 8-year-olds to 35-year-olds all enjoyed getting soft, delicious scrambled eggs served with the fluffiest muffins you could get under $1. Sounds like a pretty good deal, right? No wonder it performed as well as it did, even if it got discontinued in 2002 in favor of hot dogs and burgers. Next up, we have something that you would think people would want to have during a movie or their favorite show, but worked great as breakfast too. Burger King's French toast sticks first came around in 1985 in competition with Wendys, who was also launching their own stick campaign in hopes of claiming a place in America's Fast Food Hall of Fame. And hey, they did, but the Burger King ones just had something saucy in them, something that gave you a jolt of energy for your regular sucky Monday morning shift or lecture. Some other places did try to make these toast sticks like Jack in the Box and Sonic, and some of those were pretty big players like McDonald's and Dunkin' Donuts. They did not have as big of a piece of the pie as Burger King, though. What particularly helped these sticks keep their momentum is how well they paired with other items on the menu, and even some of the others on this list later on. Of course, they were great a la carte as well, but who really goes to fast food joints and walks out without combo meals, especially in those old 90s days? Still, those eras are definitely far behind us now, as the time of the French toast stick is long gone by today. Along the same time as McDonald's and Burger King was making breakfast items, you had Wendys trying to get into the game early with their breakfast burrito, which really did do much better than they initially expected it would. People knew Wendys for their chicken and their amazing square beef hamburger patties, so it is not surprising that some people went in with hesitant minds when they first ordered this. We always say you cannot know until you try, and that could not have been truer for Americans when they would start taking their first bites of a succulent, explosive breakfast burrito. It had a perfect mix of flavors and harmony between meat, vegetables, sauces, and bread, all in some very affordable. Wendys' use of cheddar cheese also really got people going and sold them on the idea Americans will eat almost anything if you put some hot melted cheese on it. The success of Wendys' newly propelled breakfast menu, including the burrito, slowed down around 2013, so it's pretty disappointing that you cannot get that same luxury yet incredibly cheap breakfast. McDonald's is also something you usually associate with burgers, fries, and a pretty good shake just like Wendys, but they would also try to rebrand a little with their McSkillet burrito. Originally something they launched in the November of 2007, it was a masterpiece that captivated people immediately and became one of the biggest parts of their sales, giving their breakfast menu just as much success, if not more, than anybody else's. When you think about a McSkillet, you should imagine one of those monster burritos from Chipotle. This was just as famous as those which were pretty much the king of the burrito game, but people would often begin alternating between the McSkillet or outright switching to it. We mean it really went well with some steak and roja sauce as add-ons. It is just that the McSkillet was not particularly a new concept, so when the initial hype died down, it got discontinued in 2013. Even now, there are still many online petitions to bring it back, so who knows? Something that was as essential to the hearty sandwich experience in the 80s as the meat itself, the cinnamon raisin biscuits that they first released back then, are also something people have constantly expressed their desire to see again. Seriously, it was impossible to not order this with whatever you were having. It was only some cents, and it elevated the meal to something else entirely. Think about how your Subway just does not feel complete without a chocolate cookie to go with it, except it is that feeling by 10 times. Cinnamon raisin biscuits were delectable, refreshing, and a light enough breakfast to be fulfilling without making you lazy. Unfortunately, for some odd reason unknown to all of us, Despite its very warm place in the hearts of the fans, they took it off the menu in 2002. Sonic kind of stood out from the rest of the crowd with their take on a burrito-based breakfast. Their breakfast burrito had plenty of sausage, tots, cheese, and some bacon to top it off. It was pretty beloved, even though Sonic did not have the same pull as some of the biggest names in the fast food industry. Now, do not get us wrong, they were popular and a good local breakfast option, but their popularity was not as widespread as, let's say, McDonald's. As time passed, newer chains like Chipotle introduced their breakfast burritos that gained more traction than Sonic could generate. This meant a downfall in popularity for a breakfast burrito that once was loved by every person that visited Sonic. This led to the burrito being discontinued sometime at the start of the 2000s. We have talked a lot about wraps, but what about the great stuff that goes with them? ChickfilA filled in the side item role pretty well with its spicy chicken biscuit, which today you can get for $2.25. But back then, during their golden days, both quality and popularity, you could get them for half a dollar. Spicy chicken biscuits were also great as a combo meal with a drink and a side of your picking, and that was something people definitely reacted positively to. The company noted the growing trend of spicy food and predicted that the upward momentum would stay that way, and boy were they right. Even if they played a good part in keeping that pace going in the ever-developing food scene of America, people in general wanted more stuff with a kick. ChickfilA really saw an opportunity and grabbed it, and breakfast menus were forever better for it. The McDonald's steak, egg, and cheese bagel came out around the same time as its big breakfast, and was often something families ordered together when they ate out. The incredible mix of egg and cheese with really flavorful steak bits into a bagel was something people in the States could not get enough of. It was especially popular with the older crowd, which is funny because the company initially thought it would be more popular with the younger crowd. Back then, you could get this bagel for $1.25, which was a reasonable steal and a perfect add-on at the time. Breakfast menus around the nation had a hard time competing with the steak, egg, and cheese bagel. And despite it being discontinued, it is an 80s icon we really want back. Speaking of eggs, the Burger King enormous omelette sandwich came out around 2005 and rocked breakfast menus just as much as a good McDonald's bagel. A behemoth in both size and calories, this drew so much attention on social media, and fans went in droves excited to try out the new mouth-watering monstrosity. For about $3.29, you could have yourself a full-course breakfast meal, and if you do not trust us, then no worries. The numbers speak for themselves, and Burger King saw a 20% hike in breakfast sales that left the bigwigs speechless. We guess you can never really go wrong with eggs and bread, which may just be the food equivalent of man's best friend. There's absolutely nothing unusual about wanting to start your week off with a morning melt panini, especially when it is one as good as Wendy's famous sandwich was. Almost similar in size to a burger from KFC or McDonald's at the time and served with tuna, the morning melt panini was a great deal at $1.25, especially if you had one of their coupons. Fast food joints like all of these would play around with promotions and deals all the time to keep spikes in sales steady and coming. Naturally, they worked and kept working, otherwise they would have no reason to keep them coming. Who could blame people, though? Getting your favorite food and saving an extra buck is about as good as it gets in your adulthood. Besides, paninis were a favorite of many people in America already, especially in the Italian-American community. Many homes would love whipping up a good panini during a Saturday evening, but starting your day off with a cheesy melt-based one redefined the experience. Thankfully, in a really memorable and iconic way, and we would love to see this come back. Speaking of dreamy sandwiches that set the mood just right, it would be downright criminal to record this and not talk about Jack in the Box's prime rib steak and egg sandwich. A warm flour tortilla wrap with hash browns, prime rib, cheese, onions, and a lot more, making it one of the most premium savory thrills you could get on an affordable budget. People ate these up like goblins, sparing no thought for the punch to their gut health-wise or how heavy one of these really was. Listen, this really shouldn't be too surprising if you know anything about prime rib steak and America's long-standing love for each other. It has always been one of the most popular ways to get your protein, and the idea of prime rib steak sandwiches and other bread-based dishes is not new. What was new was the innovative flavors Jack in the Box managed to hit and maintain with its sauces, And we gotta say, adding in the hash browns definitely helped too. Something we would spend a quarter of our paycheck on if it came out today for sure. Costing nothing but $1 and 3 minutes of your time as the service worker assembled it, Taco Bell's mini skillet bowls were an amazing breakfast and lunch that people adored picking up. Why was it so good for takeout especially, and not a meal you would typically sit down and have? Because it was super quick in all regards, the preparation and the consumption. A quick affair to get you all readied up on your way to work or school, and it was always a sunny plus side that it left you with enough lunch money for later. In the corporate world, you really need cash on hand at all times for those midday cravings, and that is a part of why fast food culture and restaurants got so popular in the first place. Since the famous old Bell decided to take down the mini skillet bowls from their already stellar menu, people have found quick substitutes and ways around it. A mini skillet bowl sounds healthy enough, right? That was not the only fast food name that would take a step in a more greener direction, as McDonald's came out with their fruit and yogurt parfait sometime after their big breakfast, initially being a sweet cup you could get for just $1. It was also a wonderful breakfast if you were trying for a healthier lifestyle or were one of those early morning run people. Maybe you had the gym in the afternoon and were keener on lighter breakfasts, or maybe you just want to get your fruit game up. Either way, the parfait sold in waves and made sales go high for an item that was irregular from the rest of the menu. Unfortunately, it was something they discontinued during the pandemic to make service quicker for workers because everyone prioritized minimizing contact back then. Something that went bar for bar with the French toast sticks were the Cine Minis from Burger King, which were a delight you could not miss out on. Ever found yourself having a sudden sweet tooth or craving you cannot control for some cinnamon goodness? Cine Minis were the cure for all your ailments, and they came cheaper than some ibuprofen or a Panadol. All the same, any headache you had after a bitter day would wash away with each delicious bite. Often, people would pair the French toast sticks with these too because they made such an elite dessert breakfast combo. Despite introducing it in the late 90s, its success was good enough for them to keep it in circulation until 2016. And the 2000s to 2010s were a volatile time for food in America. The market was constantly changing, and the Cine Minis eventually lost their spark. Sometimes simple really does the trick, and with the Southern-style chicken biscuit that McDonald's put on their breakfast menu, they proved that old golden rule of thumb true to the core. Just a piece of slightly dry oregano-flavored chicken between two halves of a biscuit, this was a very popular add-on and basically a guaranteed order if you were getting hash browns or a whole combo meal from the breakfast menu. It was hard to hate on it because at the time it filled a niche that no one in the market was really taking up, which was a slightly more tame chicken biscuit, not a very spicy one. Plus, that commercial was pretty catchy when it used to air the time, and if McDonald's does anything right, it is the marketing. The Southern-style chicken biscuit got discontinued a while later as it fell out of popularity due to inflation. People did not see the point in paying that much for it, and we could not blame them. Taco Bell took a note out of McDonald's playbook and came up with a chicken biscuit of its own with the Taco Bell Biscuit Taco. This was a crispy chicken in a biscuit taco with jalapeno honey flavoring. What made this particularly so successful was how it stayed fresh and exactly as crispy as when it left the fryer even after a 20-minute car ride home. Now that is some real value for your money, wouldn't you agree? Plus, the crushed bits of tortilla chip that you could find in the taco were just the perfect topping, making it a very satisfying breakfast snack. The kind of thing that gives you more of a will to live as you keep crunching and munching away near a dozen without noticing, at least, back when they used to be that cheap. Affording large amounts of it would later get pricier, and people started to get tired of the crisp being its main shtick. The biscuit taco had a pretty successful run while it lasted, but it did vanish into America's food history towards the 2000s. We would never say no to a crispy taco in any shape or form, though, and it seems like loads of people throughout the years have agreed. One of the less talked about breakfast biscuits is the Dairy Queen sausage breakfast biscuit, which did much better than people gave it credit for. Egg, cheese, and sausage stuffed between two crispy biscuit halves made for a really nice and easy-to-handle breakfast. It was also just a great add-on if you felt like starting your day with more of a full stomach or needed a bit of a boost to get through the day. People would also buy a half dozen or so and save them for later during their lunch break, and nutritionally, it was not so bad. They were just for 79 cents and raised some serious spikes in the company's sales for the time they spent in the market. McDonald's tried to break into some very unfamiliar territory with the McPizza, which did better than you would think and poorer than they had hoped. It definitely did have a strong fan base, but it just did not have enough of one, as pizzas were not exactly the brand's specialty. Still, the McPizza was a good choice to go for when you wanted an affordable and neat pizza, but did not want to commit to a whole proper pie from your favorite downtown joint. Also, people associated McDonald's with fast service, and the pizza usually took 15-20 minutes, and nobody had that kind of time for their drive-through orders, so they let go of the item in 1991. For $2.99, Wendy's would introduce the Wendys Super Bar in 1988, which was an entire buffet that did extremely well with fans. People went in absolutely insane numbers and crowds to take full advantage of what seemed like a deal too good to be true. The kind of maybe when hell freezes over situations you never really imagine yourself actually experiencing. Yet that is exactly what people got in those blessed times. A proper and delicious buffet that did not break the bank. Unfortunately, it was not that good for the company as it got pretty expensive and hard to maintain, so they discontinued it after just a calm decade. Now, the McDonald's fried apple pie, on the other hand, was definitely something that saw a lot of love as a breakfast item. And why would it not? A crispy fried pie crust with a delicious apple pie filling, which McDonald's was known for. It made you feel like you were sitting back at your grandma's, and that kind of feel-good comfort only being for a few dollars is a great deal. Naturally, people got into it more and more and kept going back on weekends and whenever there were popular deals. Some hash browns or a McMuffin, and you had yourself a perfect morning. For some reason, though, Ronald McDonald decided to stop production in 1992, much to the dismay of fans. That's all the nostalgia we can feed you today. Which food would you bring back from the list? Let us know in the comments and subscribe for more.